There is a thin line that separates laughter and pain, comedy and tragedy, humor and hurt. Irma Bombeck. Bending Not Breaking, Season 3, Episode 17, The Ember Island Players. And welcome back to another episode of Bending Not Breaking. I'm Sunshine.
And I'm Ben.
And this is Bending Not Breaking with our wonderful producer, the
Max
one, the only, the
Gongaware.
Max Gongaware.
Gonga who?
He's the best.
Gonga what?
And welcome, Max. Good to see you, bud.
Gonga where?
How you been this week? Anything fun happen this week? Anything you do? Anything?
Anybody ever say Gonga why?
Y'all are asking me very different
Well,
questions.
why is typically after where.
Gonga
Who, what,
how?
where, when, why. So, like, it's typically, yeah, people don't get to that point.
People get there once they get to know me long enough.
Max, you done anything fun this week?
The usual. Not at this time.
We're getting into spooky season, and I love that.
I sure don't.
Let's go back and watch the Hama episode again.
You know, spooky season is a whole lot of the same for me. In terms of there's enough spooky things in life that I don't need to watch
I like
more.
to go escape into other spooky things.
Yeah, I don't need that in my
Things
life.
that are a little less actual, a little less like, oh, clearly
Yeah.
that's fake, right? I don't need. That's a fun trick.
That's like the most compelling argument for me to watch a horror
No,
film.
if you go watch this scary movie, it's a different type of scary that you know isn't actually real.
Yeah, that's probably the most compelling thing that I've heard so far to get me to watch one.
I've been more willing to watch them lately, largely for that reason.
Interesting. We got Max into the conversation.
I watched Midsummer over the summer.
What'd you think?
No, thank you.
Did you love it?
Bleep was wild, man.
I love it.
No, thank you.
Love it.
I watched it on my laptop, which has bad speakers. It was a very quiet movie.
Ooh, no, thank
There
you.
was
It's
a lot
very
of
tonal.
dialogue.
It's very tonal, yeah.
There was a lot of dialogue I couldn't really hear very well, which probably helped me in terms of my adrenaline.
It's very, very on edge. I love it.
Yeah, still super uninterested. No, thank you.
Would you prefer that we talk about baseball?
Well, it's interesting too because
No,
that movie
thank
specifically,
you.
like, it mixes humor and it mixes like the fear, and I like it.
No, thank you.
Chris Pratt was pretty good.
That wasn't Chris Pratt. That was the dude from Sing Street.
No, thank you.
Oh, you're right. That was the dude from Sing
Yeah,
Street.
that's right.
I liked him better in Sing Street.
I'm sure you did.
No, thank you.
What
All
a,
right.
what a cool older brother.
We're talking about humor. We're not talking about fear today.
No,
We're talking about
thank
humor.
you.
We gotta laugh. We gotta look at things and go, don't we? Do we? Should we?
La 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 la.
I don't
la,
know.
La, la,
We will
la,
talk about
lol,
it. Ben, what
lol,
about you? Anything fun
lol,
this week?
Lol, lol,
Ben.
lol. I've literally felt like throwing up for the past week because of schoolwork. So honestly, no. Actually, that's not true. At the time we're recording, this is after my birthday.
Yeah.
So
You're 30.
I'm 30 years old
You
now.
old man.
I had a friend of mine make me a cake, and that was really special.
That is really nice. That wasn't me. I didn't do that.
Yeah, you don't make cake.
We're all 30.
We are all 30.
I'm the youngest one.
Ben was the last one there.
I'm the baby.
Bunch of 30-year-olds talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
That's what we do.
Not me.
Max just listens to
He doesn't
us
listen.
talk about. It's true.
I haven't thrown in we'll throw it in post lately. See if
Well,
I
you
can
should throw that in post.
We'll see if we can get one in there.
Maybe you should take that out during post.
No, we'll see. All right, let's talk about
that out
humor
during post.
because we're gonna talk about humor. Actually, we're gonna do what seems useless. You have 30 seconds to recap.
You have 30
is
seconds
your turn, Ben.
to record.
Ben,
I'm
it
going
is
to pull
your
up the
turn.
timer right now.
Ben, 30 seconds to do the recap,
On
and away
your mark,
we go.
Okay, so here's what happens. They go to a play that recaps season 1, 2, and 3 to this point.
This was
Oh.
this was a Clips episode?
You've got 20 seconds left.
I mean, Aang and Guitar do a thing. He crosses the line. Then, Toph is really nice to Zuko. It's comforting.
5, 4,
Sokka gives
3,
jokes to the guy.
2,
like, that's it.
1. I really wanted this episode to land on me.
like that was it. I mean, I did it all.
And
that was the best.
Gang
That was
goes
the
to a play where they reenact the first 2.5 seasons.
that was the best recap I've ever done. Like I didn't even
You
forget anything.
nailed it. You really just nailed it. It
Like-
was great. Covered it all. Let's talk about humor, because that's the lens we're watching this episode through.
Yeah, humor's a really interesting thing.
And here's it is interesting because it's this weird paradox, this weird contradiction of laughter, humor, joy, all of these things deeply important, right? Being able to laugh, being able to have a sense of humor, all these things are important. And yet, humor a lot of times, if not all the time, is typically at the expense of someone else.
Yep.
Or at the expense of someone. Typically.
I think I've expressed it before on the podcast where I have a pretty deep problem with humor because it's so often at someone else's expense.
Or the joke teller's expense, right? Someone is at the expense. It's at their expense.
Yep.
And I think that's what makes this tough. All these moments that get played for humor throughout this entire episode are at the expense of the characters that are watching them, and we see their hurt
We see
and
their
pain.
reaction. That's
we
what
see
I
their
wrote
hurt and
about.
their pain, which, how often does that happen, right? And we see them try to play it off like we try to play it off. It's a very real moment where you see these kids are dealing with being the butt of several jokes over the course of this episode. And so for us to talk about that, it's going to bring up this paradox of we want to laugh, and there's jokes in the show, and there's things that are meant to be funny, and also it's typically at the expense of a character or a situation or something that you have probably personally felt. And so what does that mean for us? Are we allowed to laugh? What does that mean?
So, one thing that I think is worth noting is September 9th is the 10th anniversary of Brené Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection. FYI, it came out. I got it the day.
I'm sure you did.
I bought it for my birthday. This is going to be anyway. But one of the 10 guideposts in that book, and the book is the 10 guideposts to wholehearted living. But one of the 10 guideposts is cultivating laughter, song, and dance. And laughter is something that is really a major piece. And she said she learns the most about laughter while she was studying shame. And I don't know if y'all heard Max there, but
Max contributed kind of to a conversation.
Max was listening. But so I want to quote just something from the book. Laughter, song, and dance create emotional and spiritual connection.
Before we get into that, I want to make sure that we throw like streamers and like bell sounds in post so that like to celebrate Max is contributing to this podcast.
Yeah. Post.
So, throw that in post, Max.
Can I share an anniversary? September
We'll
13th.
love to hear about that.
September 13th is the 17th anniversary of Max's bar mitzvah. I thought we were doing anniversaries.
Okay, sorry. Man, what does Brené Brown say about studying shame and laughter?
When did she say this?
In her book, The Gifts of Imperfection.
On September 9th.
That's when the book came out for its 10th anniversary. Laughter, song, and dance create emotional and spiritual connection. They remind us of the one thing in life that truly matters when we are searching for comfort, celebration, inspiration, or healing. We are not alone. So her assertion is that laughter is a reminder that we're not alone. That's what it serves to do.
So it's a connection piece. This comedian, this joke teller, this person is saying something that resonates with me.
Yeah.
And that is a connection piece.
And one of the things she says also is that shame resilience requires laughter.
There we go.
Which is really interesting because I struggle with that because laughter is so often at the expense of another. And like true laughter is not the use of humor as self-deprecation or deflection, but rather like, and it's not the kind of like painful laughter that we experience.
It's not that knowing laughter.
Knowing laughter embodies like the relief and connection that we experience when we realize the power of sharing our stories. We're not laughing at each other, but with one another.
So that's the difference.
That's the difference. Yeah. And so like, as Anne Lamott says, laughter is this holy, bubbly, effervescent version of holiness. I'm paraphrasing, but
which is nice because I think there's a line in there where it's not self-deprecation, right? But this idea that we're laughing
Yes.
with our things with each other. When does that be crossed into a moment of shame, or where's that line of we're no longer laughing with each other? And I think it's easy to cross that line,
especially if you're the one telling the joke, right?
Right.
Especially if you're telling a joke at another person's expense, it's your responsibility to make sure that you haven't crossed that line.
Correct. So this idea of I'm a stand-up comedian and you got offended, that's not my fault.
No, it is
It
your
is
fault.
absolutely your fault. And it defeats the purpose if you're going up there to have people laugh at jokes and they're not laughing.
Yeah.
And connecting.
Well,
and so there's a line where it becomes whiz connection can also drive disconnection the moment that it's not done correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we're learning is humor, jokes are tools, and how they are used can either be to the detriment of a relationship or the bonding adhesive to one.
Yeah, and I just think that's I want to explore that as we look at the moments in this episode. I think that'll be important as a lens.
Yeah, so the quality of being amusing or comic, especially as expressed in literature or speech, that's humor.
That's so humorous.
Yep. But I also, in here, because when you look up the theories that center around the purpose of humor, so there are the theories of humor, and there's many of them, but essentially what social functions does humor serve? And the three big ones, the first two really, relief theory, this idea of a release of tension. So here's something that's uncomfortable, which is like that stand-up comedy, right? Like here's the setting, here's the setup, here's the punchline, and the release.
Yeah,
right?
the resolution.
So but that's also we also see that in moments of people laughing in haunted houses, right? Like this moment of if I laugh, if I can laugh, it means that truly I'm safe, and so I don't have to worry about you. But we see joke telling in those situations to really diffuse the fear that's happening.
Well, and you just said something that I don't want to gloss over. Like,
please,
safety is a requisite.
It's a prerequisite.
It's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to underscore. Like, if you are feeling unsafe, your body will not let you laugh, right? And so that's we can't just gloss over that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and so I think you see that in those moments, this release of tension, this way to take out this discomfort, which I think that's a part of my struggle with humor sometimes is I'm going to use humor to release this tension when sometimes we need to sit in that discomfort.
Well, and it goes back to the whole premise of we need to spend time at the front so that we don't spend an unnecessary amount of time in the back, right? So we need to feel this
than ever.
We need to feel this now so that we don't have to experience for the worst end of it later, right? I.e., like, wear your masks now so that we don't have to spend months and months continuing to wear masks.
We're
just another example to throw in there. So back to the show.
So that's one theory, right? The next is superiority theory.
Tell me more.
The humor traces back to this idea that I get to laugh at the misfortune of others because I'm not in that situation.
So this play.
Right.
Because, like, who is the intended audience? The Fire Nation.
Yep.
Right? And frankly, this is Ember Island. This is, like, the rich Fire Nation. These are the people who have, like, vacation homes.
Correct.
Right? And so, like, these are the privileged, rich.
The 1% Fire Nation.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right? And so that's a really important piece to think about the humor in this episode. This humor was meant to put
for the
this
elites.
Group down.
Yep.
This humor was meant and geared towards the elite population. That is a really important thing to observe, I think.
Well, and we do that, right? Honestly, I do that. I feel like every time I watch reality television, that's why I'm watching it.
Tell me more.
This idea of at least I'm not them.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You know, when we watch some of these shows where it's
You cannot copy my walk.
The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, where it's
I think that's the challenge, actually.
That was the challenge. I love that show.
Which I only watched because of Sunshine.
But the ability to watch it and say, like, I'm better than that person, or at least I'm not that bad, or at least I don't say things like that. So this ability to create a sense of superiority. But there's stand-up comics and everybody else who do that at the expense of other people, and it's superior. And a lot of people who do self-deprecating humor and rely on self-deprecating humor for connection, they're throwing that out to make other people feel better and more comfortable with themselves, right? So, like, I'm laughing at me, so you can laugh at me, and that way you're comfortable with me being around.
I'm definitely guilty of that.
Right? So, and those are the two main theories of where humor kind of plays. In that light, it doesn't always come off as positive.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
So I'm happy you lifted up Brené's because I agree, and I think that's the contradiction.
Well,
that's where it sits.
And it's just a really hard line for me. Like, how do you navigate the line? And that's the challenging part. And I think one of the things that I don't know that your theories talk about this, but what I saw in this episode was hyperbole as a tool for humor.
Right.
Well,
we know it's hyperbolic.
Correct. Right. But I mean, like, the person who wrote this, I have to imagine they heard these stories as they were, like, we heard that they were gathering data. They traveled all over the world to capture these stories, right? I have to believe that they didn't hear exactly what they put onto paper. I have to believe that they were writing a play for it. It's like capitalist society. They want it to be successful. They want to make money. They want to be successful, right? They want it to work. And so they write it in such a way that will garner them continued viewership from this elite class. And so what do you do in order to impress that group? You put this group down, right? And the way they did it is they hyperbolized essentially what Zuko called, I think, what is this quote at the end? It takes all the mistakes I've made in my life and shoves them back in my face.
Right.
And it's the same for all of them. It takes all of the qualities that they feel shame around and hyperbolizes them to the point that it defines them as their only quality.
They don't feel it as hyperbole. That's the other thing.
Correct.
Because when it's our own shame systems that are at work, we are already assuming that it's the worst that it can be. We are already crafting that narrative in our head that this was so bad. And so when it's hyperbolized, that only justifies it back to us.
It's proof.
That we were that bad. I was that bad.
We were that bad.
Toph says, you didn't treat your uncle that way. I might as well have. Right?
Exactly.
Like, I did. Right? And so that's these moments where these kids are having to experience themselves being put up on a platter for the entertainment of the rich and the wealthy.
Yeah, it's really tough. Like, and can we talk about Toph for a second? Toph is the only one who likes this play.
Yes.
Can we talk about, like, what does that say about her? And before I taint your perspective, like, what does that say about her to you, or do you have thoughts?
I wonder if she loves the fact that she's being played by a big strong man, and I wonder if that's because she sees herself, or she's seen herself dominate similar men in competition in the past, and so she likes that she's being played that way and finally being seen for as strong as she feels like she truly is. I wonder if that's something about it. I wonder if she typically has been telling herself stories around Katara and Sokka and Aang, and we've seen a little bit of superiority from Toph before. And so I think that plays into that theory, is it's confirming that for her throughout this process.
So I think that Toph has the capacity to laugh at herself. One.
That helps.
Is that
laughing with her?
Is that allowing her and giving her privilege, right, to be able to... She's the one who's made all of those jokes about all the other people in this group.
Correct.
She is the one who calls those qualities out in these people.
Correct.
And so is it because she is able to make fun of her own self that she expects everybody else to be able to take it the same way that she does?
And is that a fair...
And is that fair
to do?
Exactly. And so my assumption is that she is more likely to make these jokes because she is unaffected by them. And therefore, when we have the privilege of being unaffected by certain things, it creates a blind spot. And so that is my theory. How do you feel about it? Is that like on board? What are your thoughts?
I feel like you also see that in Sokka a little bit, right? Like he's able to get on board towards the end, but because his quips are not that the things aren't accurate, it's that the jokes aren't as funny as he is.
Yes.
Right? So
he has and I think another way to reframe that is he finds it funnier when he has control over the process.
Correct.
Right? So when you have input, things you can laugh with.
Into a joke about yourself.
So he's not being laughed at. He's being laughed with.
Because he helped create that environment.
Because he created it, yes. And so I think that like those are just big. Those are huge points. Like this is big.
If you can laugh at yourself, and if you have input and the ability to change the joke or be a part of the joke, you're inside of at your expense. Does that make it more okay because it's with you? Mm-hmm. And that's where it kind of goes back to self-deprecating humor of like, is it okay? And I think it's a balance, right? It's a balance of, is this what you do all the time? Or is this something that you can laugh at yourself and laugh at a mistake you made or laugh at something that you do that's a quirk that you have and be okay with it? But where's that line of you're beating yourself up? Yeah. And you got to not do that. You got to not use that shame language. You got to not look at yourself as not worthy or not enough. Versus, and I wonder if it goes back, it's shame versus guilt almost, right? So it's, I can look at the situation where I did this thing, I slipped on a banana peel, and I can laugh because it's funny, and I know that I'm still enough and not a bad person.
Well, and it's the difference between humiliation / embarrassment / shame / guilt, right? How do you differentiate between those four things? And if it's just embarrassment, you're likely to be like, oh, this happens to a lot of people.
That doesn't mean I'm a bad person.
It's
it doesn't
the
mean
story
I'm not
you're
enough.
telling self, right? Absolutely, for sure.
But the moment you start saying I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not
an interesting question, right? On that note is humor, like in order to create balance, right? What is the opposite of humor?
Hurt?
Yeah, so what the internets say is that the opposite of humor is agony or grief. Right? And I think it's interesting because in the show, like you don't want a show that's just like straight up funny. Like there's these moments where you have it's a tension and a release. And that's what makes a good show is the dramatic feel of it, right? And so like it
still has to be heart, right? Behind the show that makes it good.
It's really interesting because I'm really don't like watching comedians, but if you have a good recommendation, not you or Max, but like if you have a good recommendation and you're a listener, I'd love to hear a good recommendation of a comedian that really toes this line well.
I've got one.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I think it's important though.
I talk to you all the time.
I know, but I've got a reference for other
people. Well, tell our
people.
listeners.
I think Hannah Gadsby toes the exact line that we're talking about really well. I think she has a wonderful understanding. She has a special called Nanette that's on Netflix that is, there are trigger warnings. There are things in it that are where she talks about big T trauma of hers. But she goes into a lot of, she makes jokes, she understands the process, she understands why she's doing it, and at the same time, she's got this contradiction of she's quitting stand-up, being a stand-up comic in this special. And she talks about her trauma, but it's funny. But it's also, there's a lot of pain there. And she also admits a lot to how her pain is turned into jokes for the comfort of the audience. And how that's not something she's willing to do anymore. And so it's a very interesting special to navigate. But it really kind of highlights everything we're talking about right here. In a very real and humanizing way. And so go watch Nanette by Hannah Gadsby.
And if you have a recommendation for us, we're interested. For sure.
Max was snapping off to the side, not into the microphone. Max agrees. Right, Max?
There it is. So what else are we missing in this episode other than the major, not cool thing that Aang does?
The not cool thing that Aang does?
Yeah.
You talking about him being upset about the way that his relationship is portrayed with Katara in the episode?
I'm specifically talking about the unwarranted kiss that he plants.
Yeah.
Not good.
We've talked about it.
But, yeah. Don't do that.
Don't kiss, don't touch, don't do things without consent.
Period. But you know what Katara says before that?
What?
I feel like you're overreacting.
Yeah.
That's what she says to him. I feel like you're kind of overreacting to this. Which
doesn't help.
I got triggered when she said that. I was like...
Well, and it's this moment of, from her perspective, that's clear. Like, how would they know how I truly feel? How are you reading into this? And I've been in Aang's shoes before in, like, similar moments.
Absolutely.
And so, I get it.
Also, like, you, last episode, hello, like, no one said that you were overreacting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we shouldn't equate those two situations, but, like...
Comparison is a thief of many things.
I said that. That was
did.
Ben quote.
Yep.
Wow. Ooh, he just quoted Ben.
Ben who?
I just laughed at myself. Do you see that it was humor? I laughed at me. Are you laughing with
But
me?
I think it's that moment where we're not validating feelings in that moment.
Yeah, it's, again, I think similarly
It's a
to what we
misstep.
said, it's an empathic miss, right? Yeah. And it just, I cannot think of a time when I would want to hear, it seems like you're overreacting to this situation.
Tell me more. You know what I mean? Like,
What do you mean?
No, I'm ready to hear it.
Oh, I am? Tell me more. Help me. Like, how am I overreacting? Yeah, no one's going to respond that way.
Yeah, I think this highlights this and the way the Zuko feels coming out of it. And Suki seems lost majority of the time throughout, like, this episode. And
I didn't know you made out with the moon.
right. I think that these are... It highlights the fact that typically humor, we never really know the impact it has on everyone that's hearing it. And so though we think everyone might be cool with the joke, or we might think that someone who we're using as the butt of the joke is fine with it, and they say that they're fine with it,
Doesn't mean they're fine with it.
doesn't mean they're fine with it. And I think that's just an important thing to highlight. And what's our responsibility of, like, is that my fault or their fault? Are they too sensitive? Are they taking things too seriously?
That's also something I really hate.
Let's talk about that.
Call me
Because I
sensitive.
think you're too sensitive.
It's the worst. Like, it is so minimalizing, right?
And there's nothing wrong with sensitivity.
And how dare you imply that sensitivity is not okay?
Correct.
How dare you, right? Ooh. Oh my goodness.
How dare you?
I just, like, it's unreal. Like, I just, yeah, you're right. I'm sensitive. Why aren't you sensitive?
Like, why are you
You're
not
like-
sensitive to this?
Yeah.
Why are you ignoring it? Which is not the best, like, most generous assumption, but really, you're just being too sensitive. It's just a joke. It's just a joke that has racial connotations to it. Why are you being so sensitive to it?
I'm sensitive.
Why are you not?
Well, it's like, I'm sensitive. I care. Why don't you care?
Right.
Like,
It's a joke that's just at the expense of women. Why are you so sensitive? It's just a joke. No.
To me, I still struggle because I go into,
Those are my fight or flight moments.
puts
right?
me in fight or flight. So I am not able to respond in an articulate way. And it's one of those things where, like, there's a quote out there somewhere that's like, I wish I could have responded with the diatribe that I could have put them in their place, and I can never do it. I think it's You've Got Mail. Meg Ryan and her character in You've Got Mail is like, I never can, like, respond at the right time with what I want to say. This might be the wrong movie.
Is You've Got Mail better than The Terminal?
Yes. Max?
I would say no, but y'all knew that.
I think You've
anyway.
Got Mail's fine.
Moral of the story is, she gets to the point where it comes to her mind, and she does lay into somebody because she's got it on her head, and then she regrets it immediately afterwards.
Well, those are the moments of how do I respond with love and belonging, even though I know you are not coming from that place, and I feel like I need to put you in your place, right?
Yeah.
Someone tweets at me or something that's clearly wrong or factually inaccurate, and my response wants to be like, "You are so dumb." And here are the 37 reasons why this is stupid, and I can't believe you believe this.
Yeah.
And that is changing no one's mind, and that is not teaching empathy, and that is not teaching how do we best shift and change culture.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet, that is typically what I want to do.
For sure.
But yeah, I think we can't tell people they're being too sensitive. And the reality is they are feeling that way for a reason. Respect the feelings. Right?
Respect the feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's it. Like
Yep.
Headline, respect the feelings. Yeah, I still don't think even after this conversation, I don't feel more confident with humor. And I think I like it that way because I don't know that I want to feel confident, because I don't want to being less confident makes me more tentative, and I think that makes me more sensitive, and I think I'm okay with it.
I think it's something that's always going to require awareness and questions is it okay that I'm laughing at this? Why am I laughing at this? I think that's a big question to ask. Why do I think this is funny?
But like,
because it might be funny. And if you break it down,
well, it's just
is it at the expense of someone else? What are the reasons behind it? Is it at the expense of me? Is it something I can laugh at and say this doesn't affect who I am as a person?
Yeah.
Or is it something that I can say, why am I shame talking myself right now?
Well, and I think that I'll save that for my devotional goal. I know what my devotional goal is going to be. I'm going to hold on to it. I'm not going to waste it.
It's a tough episode. It's one of those things where there's not a lot to recap, right? I literally put the gang watches a portrayal of themselves. They don't really like the portrayal. That's like, because we've seen all these things that happen and them being the butt of every joke. And I think that the creators, if we look at authorial intent, are somewhat doing this because they got feedback on episodes and they're like, playing back on it. Did Jet die? I don't know. Right?
It was really unclear.
Yeah, I think those are moments creators we don't have a canon for this shit. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
And Combustion Man might have died.
Yeah.
We're not really sure.
Yeah. There's a lot there. It's good. Yeah, I just this is an episode that I can skip, but I'm really glad that we got to this episode. We've done this and had this conversation about it because lots of cool stuff.
Yeah. If you've got a lens that you look at this episode through, hit us up. Give us a voicemail, thearchiv@gmail.com.
We'd love that.
Yeah, do that.
More voicemails.
All right, Max, you got anything to add?
At this time, I do not.
All right.
We only have a few episodes left this season, so if you have a voicemail, now is the time.
Yeah.
Send it in.
Because who knows about Cora, am I right?
We need 50 patrons, y'all. 50. We're getting there.
That's
We're getting
the
closer.
Goal. Woohoo!
We want to get there. We want to get to it.
All right. Well, we will be right back after a quick break, and we will do our devotion and our gratitude. Hey everyone, this is Sunshine, and I want to invite you all to be a part of our Patreon. By supporting our Patreon, you can join our online community, get bonus episodes each month, and even participate in live episodes with me, Max, and Ben. We are incredibly thankful for all the support you all have shown, and it means the world to us that you enjoy our conversations. For us to continue this work, our goal is to get to 50 patrons and record Season 1 of Cora, so please support if you feel called to do so. Thank you for being you, and thank you for listening. We love y'all, and hope you enjoy the rest of Season 3. Now, back to the show.
And we are back for the remainder of our fun episodes. What we have for you today is a nice, fun practice that we can help utilize our imagination to get a better, more holistic picture of the show. And so the practice that we're going to be trying today is typically called either a sacred imagination, if you will. It's a chance for us to imagine ourselves into the show. And what that theoretically does is it gives us a chance to use our holistic sense, i.e., what are we tasting? What are we literally feeling? What are we seeing? What are we touching as we experience ourselves into this segment? And what we've got for you is we have a 30-second clip that we're going to play. And we want you to get to a point where you can relax while you're listening to this. If possible, and it's safe for you to do so, like close your eyes and let yourself imagine yourself into the scene. If you're driving, I don't recommend closing your eyes. But do whatever you can or whatever you need to do in order to prepare yourself to be immersed in the scene and experience it. You can be a fly on the wall. You can be a character that is named. You can be anyone that's in this scene. And just to give you kind of a picture of where we are going to dive into a moment of the show where Toph's character is first revealed. And so that's just giving you a picture of wherever you are in case you want to imagine yourself into a specific character. Without further ado, we are going to introduce this 30-second clip, and then Sunshine and I are going to tell you about how we imagine ourselves into the scene, and then we'll go from there. You ready?
Ready.
All right, Max, hit us with that clip.
In the sky, you have to look underground.
Who are you?
My name's Tough, because it sounds like tough. And that's just what I am.
Wait a minute. I sound like a guy. A really buff guy.
Well, Toph, what you hear up there is the truth. It hurts, doesn't it?
Are you kidding me? I wouldn't have cast it any other way. At least it's not a flying bald lady.
Thank you, Max, for giving us that nice little clip. That was a rich in feeling. I don't remember feeling those feelings when I just watched it earlier, but God, imagining myself into it was a completely different experience. It's what intentionality does. So, Sunshine, you had an opportunity. You
Yes.
Like, tell me, who were you as you imagined yourself into this scene?
I was a Fire Nation citizen, elite citizen, sitting in the box next to them. And I am annoyed.
Tell me more.
They talk all the time during the middle of this performance, and I'm not paying to hear what they have to say. I'm here to enjoy the show.
Wow, I had never considered it from that perspective.
They've talked all show long, the whole time, and I'm somewhat mad that an usher has not been there.
Why haven't you said anything to them?
I'm not gonna get up and complain. I'm non-confrontational as this Fire Nation employee, so I'm just gonna sit and pout.
Interesting. Wow.
That's what I was feeling, and right now
Did you
I'm
overhear
on
anything
edge.
that they said? Or are you intentionally not listening? Or
They're mumbling
okay.
something about casting, but
I see. Just Fire Nation.
but I'm
kids.
upset with them. Yeah, they're
Interesting.
chatting. How did they afford this box? These are good seats.
I thought they had top box, not good seats.
They were clearly in their own box, like it might be around the balcony.
Didn't they say at the beginning of the episode that this was like nosebleeds?
Oh wow. I'm even more mad.
Oh.
Yeah, I paid for the best seats that I could afford, and these children are ruining it.
Those jerks. Okay.
The Fireflakes are also stale,
Ooh.
and I had to pay $14 when they should only cost $3.
Oh man.
Stadium price gouging,
Well, this is like there's such a cool
theater
thing.
price gouging.
There's such a cool thing. Like, this is where headcanon starts to come from, is where we imagine ourselves into the scene and we can create this like headcanon, and it's really beautiful. Like, this is how like fan fictions are like started, and then it's just really neat to imagine ourselves into this scene. And I really love how you created this perspective that doesn't like that's not there, that we don't see directly on screen, but like that person's there, you know,
And annoyed.
and very annoyed. Yeah. So funnily enough, I was also annoyed.
Oh, were you? Were you around the corner? Were you another
No,
person?
I was-
I don't know why I'm still doing this character. It's very Moira
really-
from Schitt's Creek.
You followed through. Yeah, I was Katara, and Katara like has been getting like poked at by Toph the whole episode throughout, like being laughed at indirectly and somewhat directly via the laughing at the character of Katara. And Katara's like, oh, she's going to react the same way we have. She's not going to like her character. We haven't liked our character. And so she's like, I'm gonna hit her where it hurts because I know this is gonna hurt her, and so I'm gonna dig where she's hurting.
What is this meant to accomplish?
Well, and I don't think she's thinking. I wasn't thinking about that. I was so like wanting her to feel what I had felt.
To learn the lesson.
Yeah, I want her to learn that. That's exactly what I was feeling.
I'm going to teach you.
I'm going to be like, I'm going to use the exact words you threw at me because I know that this is like a universal feeling. And then I'm like, oddly enough, when she wasn't, like, I felt worse.
Has there ever really been a moment where you're like, I'm going to teach you a lesson, and it's panned out where the other person has been like, thank you for teaching me that lesson? Or is it always like, I think I taught you the lesson, the other person's like, that really hurt, and, this is a strand on our relationship. Or the point isn't made, it just like in this instance where Toph was like, no, I love it.
Yeah, I just, as Katara, I felt worse after my jab didn't land. It was just like, I just felt defeated in a way, and I felt like I felt more alone and less understood by Toph, which was also not great, and it wasn't a great feeling.
Toph also didn't see your pain that you
Yeah.
were trying to share.
Maybe I guess that is a part of it. Like, I didn't feel seen, right? Because I wanted her to,
But
I
also
wanted
your
to know.
strategy wasn't great.
My strategy wasn't great. I wanted her to know that she felt the things that I felt. And yeah, my way of doing it was like, I'm going to make her feel what I felt. And instead, it's like, I feel less seen because I expected her to know what it felt like. And now I don't think she does yet still. And yeah, that's a bummer.
This is a fun little exercise.
I'm a fan.
All right.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it again.
Why not? We'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so
Devotion.
we're gonna move on to our devotion. But like, hey, if you want to send a voicemail in of like, who did you imagine yourself as?
Well, that could be fun.
Send us a voicemail. Tell us about it, and we will put it on the show if we can.
Lovely.
2 minutes or less.
Yeah, do your best.
We believe in you.
Devotion. Element.
Fire. We didn't start the fire.
It's a different song.
It was always burning since the world's been
All right.
turning.
Element of Fire.
We didn't
Devotion.
start
Do you got one or you want me to go?
You go.
said you had one.
I forgot. That was so long ago.
That's okay. My devotion is, honestly, I'm going to try to be much better this week about not using sarcasm. I think that I try to play it as humor. It is typically at someone else's expense. I'm really going to try to harness that back and not
I'm
do
really
that.
guilty of that too.
Because I don't think it creates a warming environment. I don't think that creates the environment that I'm trying to create, which is one of safety and caring, and empathy, and sarcasm doesn't allow for that. And so I think that
Tell me about the fire element in that.
It's warming.
Okay.
Yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah, it's warming. I want to create a warm space. And so it felt like Toph, where you try to like call me out.
I wasn't. That's not what I meant to do.
So
I thought that's Paul Simon that tries to call me out.
You're the worst.
it's actually really good. I liked it. But yeah, so that's why I'm gonna really try to not use sarcasm this week. That's my goal.
You're not the worst, Max. Speaking of sarcasm, I think you're really, really great.
How are you gonna create a warming environment, Ben?
That was a good example of laughing with. I was laughing with, even though he was just calling me out. So, y'all, humor and I struggle. I've said this. And what I want to do is I want to find a way to laugh once a day. Because I don't. And I want to laugh once a day. So I'm going to stoke my fire every day.
Nice.
By making sure that I am exercising my laugh muscles at least once a day. And you hear a quote. There's the quote out there somewhere that's like, you should laugh once and cry once every day. And I'm just like, that's a lot to ask for. So I want to laugh, and I want to challenge myself to stoke that fire and laugh once a day.
Laughter's great. Focus on it, building connection. Love it.
With.
Love it.
Yeah, laughing with.
Laughing with. Yeah. All right.
Which brings us to gratitude.
Let's talk gratitude.
Gratitude.
Honestly, in a serious fashion, one of my favorite parts of our episodes is this moment.
For sure. Absolutely.
I really love that we do this and have started doing this, and I'm glad. My gratitude, I think, is for Sokka. I think for me, it's his ability to look at these, and I think his experience through this process was one of, this could be funnier. I think that this could be, like, he was really enjoying the aspect of being a part of it. And I just appreciated his attitude and the fact that he's done the self-work. It seems as if he's done the self-work to this point to be able to experience it in this way.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that's there, and that's something that I continue to work on. And so I really want to give gratitude to Sokka.
I love that.
Mm.
You know, we've talked about how we give Toph a lot of gratitude, and I'm going to do it again because, you know, Toph is excellent. But this moment where Toph has been in a position of humorous privilege, if you will, so to speak, where she's been able to laugh the whole time and she hasn't felt super cornered, at least not outwardly. And I'm really grateful for the moment she has with Zuko, where she is so empathetic and so loving and kind, and brings in her conversation with Uncle Iroh and says, you are loved, you are cared for, he cares about you. And it was just a really touching moment. And I think that expressing affection is hard for her, which is why she ends by punching him, because it was uncomfortable. But I still think it was a really beautiful moment, and I'm really grateful for her diving into that love and kindness. And so I'm grateful for Toph.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, that's been another episode as we talk about the Ember
Say it again?
Island Players. Is this a filler episode? Did we learn? Is that we've said
There
before there
are
are
no
not a
filler
episodes, but
episodes.
like, is it?
But maybe.
Is it?
I feel like there's always a recap episode.
Well, it's not one that I dislike. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't dislike this episode.
It's not a waste of space.
No. Like, I dislike the nightmares and daydreams and nightmares.
What are your thoughts, listeners? Is this like the worst episode? Is this your favorite episode? Like, where is it on the spectrum for you? How do you feel about it? Where is the value of this episode, and where does it lie? And what are your thoughts?
Next week.
Ooh. What is next week? Episode 18.
Sozin's Comet Part 1. We're getting to the thick of it. We're getting
Is
to the
it really
thick of
it?
Yep.
We're approaching
We're there.
Like part 1 of the finale.
Yep. So
Dang.
make sure you're tuning in for that. You can find us at B&B_pod,
Check us
Twitter
out.
and Instagram, Bending Not Breaking on Facebook,
Check us out.
and patreon.com/BNB_pod
Yeah, check that
to
out.
support us there. I'm Sunshine Mayfield,
And I'm Ben Pruitt.
and as always, Max is on the dials, and this has been Bending Not Breaking. Thank you for listening.
Bye.